living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power.
Hello, welcome to this episode of Your Ultimate Life. I'm excited to have you here. This podcast is my labor of love to help you create your ultimate life, a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy, where you love every single day, you get up excited, and you lean into your life. Can you imagine that? Maybe you live that way already, and if you do, I'd love to talk to you. So right now, first invitation, if you're a person who gets up every single day and loves your life, you're excited, you get up on fire with your heart ablaze with what you have to do, then I'm going to talk to you. And the reason I do, if you're willing, I'd love to, because I love knowing those people. And here's why. Two reasons. Often when I talk like that, people react like, well, that's impossible. You can't live that way. You can't have a life where every day is exciting, joyful, powerful, and creative. Can't have that. So, and I do, and I love knowing others who do, because that just demonstrates for us and for others that it is possible. The second reason, if you live that way, I really want to talk with you, is because almost without exception, people, you, me, who have learned how to live in joy every day with excitement and leaning into life and everything, when you've learned that, you have a story about how you got there, because so many, nearly everyone, starts not feeling that way, feeling less than, not able to, behind the eight ball, whatever feeling you want, not good enough. And then it's a process of learning. So there's a story about how you got to a place where you love your life. And I love sharing those stories. So if you're willing, go to kellenflukigermedia.com here and use a contact form and let's talk. Because I'd love sharing your story. And maybe you want to be a guest on one of the shows here or on LA Talk Radio or in my television series. Maybe it would be valuable to share your message, your story, your journey of how you got to the place where you love your life every day. Because the more of those stories you and me share, the better the world is. We have influence, we have power, we have the ability to let people feel good about themselves. Yeah, I can do that too. And the more examples we have of that, the more likely it is. If all we see around us is examples of failure, which is what we're going to talk about today, examples of frustration or negativity or can't be done or can't do it, can't make it. If that's what we see tons of, then that's what we believe, because that's all we see. So I love sharing examples. So if you're a person who loves your life every day, let's talk. One, I want to know you. And two, maybe you want to share your story on one of my programs. Most people do not live there. They're not in a place where they just love life every day and they get up excited. I didn't used to be there. I got up and hated getting up. Getting up was hard, was tired. I wanted to hit snooze a bunch of times and, that sort of thing, go back to bed. And when I did finally get up, it was with, I got to do all this stuff today. I gotta. That's not a recipe for fun. It's not a recipe for joy. And it isn't really a recipe for success, because when we're feeling like that, we don't bring our best work forward. We don't bring our most creativity forward. And you already know that. So that's a true thing. And this podcast is something that I do. And when I'm on other people's shows, I just recorded a podcast yesterday and I'm recording another one tomorrow. I always really honor podcast hosts. And the reason isn't because I am one, but I do because I know, because I am one, what a labor of love it is. It's a lot of work. And it's a choice about how to add good to the world with the conversations you have or the guests you bring on, about how you can do something to lift and bless and serve. Now, I know there's some podcasts that are just conversations about whatever, and there's some that are negative, where we're looking to either push a narrative forward or have guests that are going to, together we're going to commiserate and be mad at somebody. I don't participate in any of that, and I'm not about that. I certainly am pushing a narrative, and the narrative is you're powerful. The narrative is you're wonderful. The narrative is you have infinite capability. The narrative is you're a divine being. The narrative is you create your life. Wow. Think about that. You create your life. So do I. And that's despite all the stuff that happens around us that we didn't plan for. So today I called failure the power of failure. Now, usually we look at failure and think it's a negative thing. I don't want to fail. I don't want to have failure. Oh, yuck. Today I want to talk about the power of failure. And I don't mean the power of failure to wreck your life or wreck your attitude or your mood or your plans or your good fortune or anything else. I'm talking about the power of failure. So this little background behind me says, failure is the power to success. And that is a true thing. Now, make no mistake, I know you and me, we can interpret failure as an indictment. It means we're not good enough, we're stupid, we're wrong, we shouldn't be trying whatever it is we're trying. But that's not what it is. Failure is very simple. Let's make a definition. Failure is just, I didn't get the outcome I wanted. So whatever I did to try to get that outcome didn't work. And that's all it really means. It didn't work. We put the word failure on it, and that failure has a sound and a feeling and a reputation and a stigma, like it's an indictment, like there's something wrong with you, not a simple truth that what I tried didn't work. So that's the first thing I want you to remember. Failure isn't anything except it didn't work. That doesn't work. Okay, so remember that. The second thing I want you to remember is that failure is a step on the road to progress. Now, Zig Ziglar, who's dead now, but many years ago used to speak a lot. He spoke a lot about sales and getting things done. And I think my wife belonged to several network marketing companies many years ago, and like 30 years ago. And Ziglar and others spoke at those. And, you know, one of the statements is every no is one step closer to a yes. Every failure is simply one more step toward progress. Some say if you don't fail, you're not doing anything. Michael Jordan had a whole speech on that where he talked about how many shots he'd missed and how many times he'd been trusted with the game-winning shot and failed, et cetera, et cetera. And if you don't know that little speech, look it up. Michael Jordan on failure. Google that. Because it lists how many times he missed this and that and the other. And the point in doing that wasn't to make anything negative about him. It was to demonstrate that even Michael Jordan, you know, maybe the greatest, and some people argue for Kobe or LeBron, but someone that elevated failed zillions of times, and all of the success that they had was on the back of that failure. Now let's get it down to the rubber meets the road for you, okay? I have failed. I can't even tell you how many times. I have given talks that went flat. I have given coaching sessions that didn't go like I wanted. I have launched products that didn't work very well. I have tried to perform piano pieces and made mistakes, made a mess. Okay, and the list is endless. And you have your own list. Maybe you've tried to launch a business and it bombed. Maybe you've tried to launch 10 businesses and 9 of them or all of them bombed. That doesn't matter. All it means is that didn't work. And if we talk about what it actually means, and we remember it just means that didn't work, what else can we do? So that's the rest of the question. That didn't work. What else can we do? The drama or the barrier comes when we turn that didn't work into I suck, I'm stupid, I'll never make it, I'm wrong. So that is an addition. Failure simply means it didn't work. So let's talk about a couple of historical examples about people who failed. We all know the story of Edison, and there were some 10,000 attempts to make an incandescent light bulb. An incandescent light bulbs, the ones we used to have, then we had fluorescent, and now we have LED and all these other things. But the first light bulb was a bulb, the kind we screwed in and that got really hot. And it was a filament. So electricity wires came up each side of the plug and went inside the light bulb. and there was a tiny thin wire wrapped in a coil in between them. And that's how light bulbs work, and you probably already know that. And when the two wires were connected, or you turned on a switch, electricity went through that little tiny thin wire. And because it was a thin wire, it was way too much electricity for the wire. Not too much, but it got hot. And when it got hot, it glowed, and that's what created the light. All of the other times before his 10,001, I guess, the filament burned up really quickly. Pop. Like, you remember when light bulbs burned out, you would take them, unscrew them, take them out, and you'd shake them, and you could hear that little rattle in there, and that meant the filament, that little thing had burned and was sitting in the bulb, and you knew it was bad, so you threw it away, put in another one. The secret to getting it done was, how thick does the filament need to be? How many coils were there in there? And one of the main things is, what is the gas that you put in the light bulb? Because for a long time, they just put air in there, and air has oxygen in it, and oxygen causes metal to burn. And so the air caused the filaments to burn immediately. And every time he'd plug the light bulb in, pop, they'd burn right away. Finally, he ended up filling them with argon gas, which doesn't burn and doesn't support combustion. And that was one of the big secrets to make it work. So all those other times were just not working. And finally, he tried enough different things that he found one that worked. You know that example. A couple others you probably have heard. J.K. Rowling, who wrote the wildly successful Harry Potter books and all the movies that came with it, was on welfare and submitted the manuscript to a gazillion, and I'm saying a gazillion because I don't remember the number, but a gazillion publishers. No, this sucks, you can't write, no way. Until eventually it turned into the worldwide hit, worldwide franchise, 8 movies, and then the more, the Dumbledore movies or the Salamander movies or whatever they were. I loved them all, by the way. I just can't remember the names right now. So at least a dozen movies and an enormous global franchise that's made her a zillionaire and was massive success. The third one is another one you probably know, and that's Walt Disney. His idea about creating the thing that eventually became Disneyland and the whole Disney franchise was met with all kinds of no, who knows how many times. And because of his perseverance, it finally got done. What example do you know right now in your life? Maybe you in somewhere where you were facing this terrible problem and you failed and you failed and you failed and you failed and you failed. And then you finally succeeded. Do you have an example like that? If you do, I'd love to hear it. Put it in the comments below. Tell me your story. That's another kind of story that I want. So in the beginning, I ask anyone that's listening that lives that ultimate life where you're living in joy every day to get a hold of me because I want to share your story and I want to know you. Here's another invitation. If you have a story where you failed and failed and failed and failed and then you finally succeeded, I want to share that story too. And there's 2 reasons. One, I want to honor you for having the perseverance to stick with it. That's a rare quality. Most people settle for mediocrity. They just settle for mediocrity. Oh, it's not my season. I can't do this. Not going to work. That kind of thought, and they give up and quit trying. So I want to honor you for having the courage to keep going and keep going. The second thing I want to share your story because I want to have another example of someone who's toughed it out, who had the perseverance to treat failure as a power, failure as a launch pad, failure as, I call it an IDP, interesting data point. Okay? It's not important except to know this didn't work. This podcast right now wasn't my first one. I did 200 episodes of another one, and it was about the book, one of the books that I have. You now know I have 20, and I'm writing number 21, but one of the books I wrote is called Tightrope of Depression. And it detailed my story from young up to 2007 when my life radically changed. And I started a podcast called Tightrope Tales. And it focused on, the negative things and the struggles that had gone on for years. And, I gave examples and things in each episode. And it bombed. I didn't even ever publish it. I had like 200 episodes ready to go. And the more I looked at it, the more I thought, I don't want this to be what I share is the struggles without the victory, without the assurance of possibility. So I have 200 episodes I've never shared, and I'm not going to. And the reason isn't because they're not true. They are true, and they're powerful stories. But my focus is on elevating you. And so while I sometimes talk about failures, and sometimes I've told my own stories and history of failure and stuff, it is always in the context of, and then we kept going, and then we got there. That'd be like talking about a trip where you're driving and the only thing you do is talk about getting the flat tire or 2 flat tires or stuck in the desert, and you end it there. You're done. Okay, we were stuck in the desert forever. Instead of finishing the story, and it took 12 hours and finally somebody came, or we walked to the gas station or whatever. You got done, you got there, you got help, you made it. That's the important part of the story, because we all know in our own lives times when we've just given up, and that's not fun. Nobody writes books about that. That's not interesting. What we love to go see in the movies is the tough stuff, and then, the victory, right? That's what we love. That's what we want. We want to share and feel those victories. All right. So I've given you a couple of historical examples, and we've talked about failure just being an interesting data point. What I'd like you to do is think about how you personally feel about failure. For a long time, I lived with the idea, I called it NGE. I'm just not good enough. That was kind of this vague idea in my head. I'm not good enough to make a lot of money. I'm not good enough to have the kind of life I want. I'm not good enough to have my music, be widespread and be successful. I'm not good enough to, and fill in the blank. That was made worse as I grew older with, I had some failed relationships. I struggled for decades with depression. And one of the fuel sources for my depression is I took every single failure, meaning it didn't happen the way I wanted. I took every single failure as a massive indictment of me personally. I suck. I'm bad. And that is not true. Want to know what is true? The truth is, you and I were divine beings. You were created by the divine, and you know that when you get quiet and you feel inside. And I know you've had divine nudges and feelings, inspiration, and intuition. You may not believe it sometimes. You may sometimes feel like, how could this be happening? But you know you're divine. And you also know that you have far more capability than you're using. We all do. We all live below our capability. Often the reason is because we have had failures, and then we carry these stories about the failures, that they mean bad things about us. So I'm going to give you a practice, something you can do to change that, because just talking about the fact that we fail and then we blame it on ourselves personally and we treat it as an indictment and we give up isn't very helpful unless we have a way forward. So there's 2 things I'm going to suggest to you. Both of them I do, and both of them are effective. Number 1 is getting a coach. Get somebody who believes in you at least as much or more than you do. Someone who you can talk with and they can see your greatness. And they can talk with you and hold a space for your enormous vision. So often when I get the chance to meet people and talk to them about their vision, they start with these small visions. Well, I'd like to, do this. And it's not that there's anything wrong with the goal, a certain amount of money or a certain house or car, but it's like, if I have that, I'll be so happy. When just in a half an hour conversation, I have seen awesome gifts, talents, and capability. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I listened to their story, their life story, their journey, and they're about my age, in the 70 range, and I was in awe. And I'm thinking, and they were doing good already. It wasn't like they were sitting around just eating bonbons and watching Netflix. But I was in awe at the resilience, at the developed skills, at the capability that they had, and that they were still on fire to do good, add good to the world. And so we talked about what else was possible, how many people they might impact, where and how they might do that, how many millions of people would benefit from the message, from the stories, from the choices of resilience. And so we were able to create a lot of excitement, energy, and a plan to get that done. So, number one, get a coach. Get someone who believes in you, who's going to be with you, help you, hold you accountable, help you shape a beautiful vision, help you dare more greatly than you dare yourself. When you have somebody with you that believes in you, it's like, well, we've all seen these movies about football or basketball coaches or something, and they just inspire their team or one player on the team or individuals to get to enormous heights of success. Good coaches do that. So don't just get any coach, get one that inspires you. People often ask me, well, how do I pick a coach? Interview several and pick one that makes you feel invincible, that makes you feel like you can do whatever you want. And then that offers the support, encouragement, examples, frameworks, and tools to help you make that happen. Right? If you had a coach and they make you feel like crap, or they make you feel wrong or stupid, that's not very helpful. We don't listen. We don't work very well when we feel picked on or, if we're being dissed, right? So that's how you pick a coach. You talk to several. Any good coach will talk to you for a little bit and find out what you want and see if they think they can help you. So that's number one. Number two, this is a personal thing you can do by yourself. You don't need anyone or any help. And that's this little couplet I have, which is notice and choose. Notice and choose. Most of us go through life without paying attention to what's going on inside of us, without thinking about how we feel. We're angry, something happens we don't want, we're angry, or we're frustrated, or we're resentful, or we're sad, or we're saying, feel picked on, why me? And we have those feelings, but we don't stop and say, hey, I am feeling angry right now. And you might think that's stupid. You might say, well, duh, if you're mad, you're mad. No, hear me out here. I'm feeling angry right now. Is that serving me? Forget the other person or the situation. Doesn't matter who did what. I am feeling angry right now. Is that really serving me? 99% of the time you're going to find it isn't. Because when we get angry, we're blaming almost always. We get locked in narrow patterns of thinking that aren't serving us. Another really good one to do that with is fear. What am I feeling right now? Man, I'm scared to death. I'm going to go give a prezi. I'm going to talk on stage. I'm going to meet a new person. I'm going to apply for a job. I'm going to do whatever. I'm just afraid of something. So first stop. How am I feeling? What is it that I'm feeling? And then make a choice. Notice and choose. Take the time to notice how you're feeling and then make a conscious choice. What would I need to do? Who do I need to be not be afraid? You might think of someone else. Let's say you're going to speak. Who do I need to be not be afraid of this? You might think of someone that you know, a superhero, a friend, someone that you know. Well, I'm going to be them for a minute. Right? Notice and choose. I'm angry. You know what? I can choose not to be angry. I don't need to be angry. You can't make me mad. And anger and fear are two really prevalent and really easy ones to do this with. You don't have to be angry and you don't have to be afraid. And we're not talking about saber-toothed tigers and bears chasing you and stuff. Talking about 99% of our fear is in our mind, and it's about stuff that never happens. There was a quote that said from somebody, I don't remember who, but it said, I know worrying works because 90% of the things I worry about never happen. And of course, it wasn't the worrying, it's the fact that they weren't going to happen. And all that effort and energy spent worrying was useless. Failure is a power to success. You increase the likelihood of failure when you're afraid. What? Yeah, when you're afraid. I'll tell you what, I did a lot of martial arts for a lot of years. And in the form that I did, there were, a lot of times we're breaking something, boards or bricks or whatever were part of the thing. And I can tell you when you're getting ready to break something, especially some pile of boards or bricks that's right at the limit or beyond the limit of what you've done before, what you think you're capable of, If you have fear and a split-second hesitation, you're going to fail, and you're probably going to break your arm. It is eliminating the fear that lets you move forward and eliminate failure. So let's talk about something else. Maybe in your family it was different. I don't know. In my family growing up, failure was a sin. It was bad. It got punished. Often it got punished in silent ways with ridicule, and it got punished sometimes, depending on what it was, with physical punishment. Totally inappropriate, totally wrong, and it led to a climate of fear, which contributed to my feeling not good enough and a bunch of stuff like that. So let's understand, failure is just not getting the outcome you want. Failure is not an indictment of you. It doesn't mean you're bad or you don't have value. It doesn't mean the thing you're trying to do isn't worthwhile. It only means that didn't work. Now, I want you to examine your mindset toward failure. When you think of the word failure, you failed, what comes up for you? If that word, even said that way I said it, creates a feeling in you of fear or negativity or I got to hide or, man, I hope that doesn't happen to me, then you have a lousy relationship with failure. Failure is simply not getting what you intended. It is normal, it is natural, and it is essential. If you're not failing, you're not moving forward. I want to give you an example. Just the other day, 4 weeks ago, there was a rocket launch. SpaceX launched a rocket. And they had launched one just a few months before, and it got up a few minutes in the sky, and it blew up. This one, they launched another one. I can't remember the number of it, 9. They launched this one, and it stayed in the air for longer than the other one, and then it blew up. And you could say, man, what a failure. What are they blowing that up for? And when you looked and did some research, they expected it to blow up. They have a practice of testing the gear. Nobody was in it. It was unmanned, of course, because they knew it was going to blow up. They're testing the gear to failure. We test to failure so we can see where the real limits are. When you're doing workouts, doing push-ups, doing curls, doing things, you do the reps to failure till you simply can't do anymore because it is in that last moment of failure that the muscles break down and you get the most growth over the next days. So failure is a beautiful word. It is a powerful word. It is something to make friends with. Make friends with failure. Now, another thing that failure does is it is a powerful learning opportunity. When I learned to ski, I didn't start learning to ski till I was 45. My upbringing, we just didn't do winter sports, and as an adult, I didn't do it. Some changes happened in my life, and at 45, I went to learn to ski. And I'm kind of an all or nothing guy, so I wanted to learn quickly, and I wanted to get off the bunny hill and the green stuff quick and get to the blue, and had my eye on black and black slopes and double blacks. And guess what? Lots of failure, lots of lessons, lots of learning about how you hold your body and how you distribute your weight and how you do or don't anticipate little bumps and, that kind of thing, and what it means to have flat lit snow where you can't see contours. All of that. Boy, did I have a lot of failures. I paid some prices. I had bruises and bumps and a dislocated shoulder and a dislocated knee. I think that one was snowboarding, which I learned 5 years later. But that's part of it. Failure is a learning opportunity. I interviewed somebody the other day as a podcast guest, and they said, fail up. Fail up. Another saying is fail forward. So don't think of it as a setback, an indictment, or something negative. It isn't. It's just a data point. Fail fast, fail forward. That's the idea, that hurry up and fail. Try it. Figure out what doesn't work so you can hone in quickly on what does work. Now, I'm not saying just go try crazy things and fail in terms of getting hurt or wasting all your money or anything. Get the best guidance you can. Like I said, get a coach, talk with people that have done what you're trying to do or something close to it and get the best advice that you can get, and then go for it. You're a creator. You're a divine creator. So let failure, all of your failures, energize you, light you up, make you love yourself more, and move you to success. One thing I would ask you to do is every time something fails, go to the mirror and look in the mirror and say, I love you. And just love yourself. Because like I said, and you know this, we live in a world right now where failure is a stigma. There's an indictment, and it's, a view of your value and of your common sense or whatever. You're bad somehow because you failed, and it's not true. No progress takes place without failure. No growth takes place without consistent failure and effort, adjustment, and learning. And if you are able to change your attitude to where you love failure, lean into it, look forward to it, because it is on the back of your failure that you will rise up to the most successful things you want to do. Now, I'm doing this podcast about your ultimate life because I know you have the ability to create a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy. You can. No one can take that from you, and no one can keep you from doing it. You're going to fail. One of the things that happens always either in private coaching, my coaching groups, people are writing books or they're doing videos or something, and they're like, oh, this is going to look bad. And, oh, what if somebody thinks I'm stupid or whatever? I just interrupt them right there, and I say, good, they are. You're going to have some that do, so let's get past that barrier right now. Yep, there's going to be people that think you're stupid. There's going to be people that think you're wrong. There's going to be people that hate on you. And you know what? If that's not true, you're not saying anything. You're not doing anything. You're not building anything. So expect it. Look for it. Lean into it. I don't mean belligerence or anger or fighting or any of that. Just lean into your own progress. Lean into your own growth. You are capable. You are powerful. You are destined to win. And for every one of us, the road to winning goes through failure. It goes through 1, 2, 5, 10, 50, or 10,000, in Edison's case, failures to get to success. And so what? So what? Failure is not a catastrophe, it's a celebration. So treat yourself well, love yourself, lean in, dare more greatly, experience more deeply, and lean in more joyously. I have learned to do that, and I can tell you from being on the other side of hating failure and hating myself when I failed and all the rest, to just living in purpose, prosperity, and joy all the time. And failure is fun. It's part of life. And it means that you're working and you're growing. And I'm not saying we're trying to fail, but lose all the stigma and replace it with love and energy. That is a secret most people don't have. They try to minimize the pain instead of maximize the joy. You're powerful. Why? Because you're trying. You're great. Why? Because you're out there busting it and you're moving forward. I would rather work with and be associated with people that are doing things and failing than those that are afraid, waiting for the right time, and hanging back because they're worried. So I invite you to go to 3 places. I invite you to go to dreambuildwriteit.com. I'm going to hold a challenge in June. And if you have a story to tell, that might be for you. I invite you to go to KellenFlukigerMedia.com because there's all kinds of resources there that you can have. Many of them don't cost anything at all, but they're powerful and they come out of my years of decades now, actually, of doing this work with people. I'm going to invite you to one more place. I've got a website called MasterYourMonsters.com. MasterYourMonsters.com. And it's kind of funny. Because when we're kids, we think, monsters might be under the bed or in the closet or whatever. And then we grow up and we realize that was just our imagination. But as adults, we have monsters. I'm not good enough monster. The It's Not My Fault monster, I Have No Time monster, procrastination, and all those others that really eat our lunch. So I created a product called Master Your Monsters. It's free, and it's an audio course with 10 audios tackling particular monsters. This will help you overcome, change your relationship with, and lean into failure. All of this is something I give to you because I love you. I know that you're divine and capable, and there's nothing that can keep you from creating your ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to kellenflukigermedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, yourultimatelife.ca. Subscribe, share.
Stand with your heart.